have no idea. Let's do this thing. Live, I read comic books. We're going to jump into this. This is the I Read Comic Books podcast. I am your host, Mike Rappin. Joining me this week, two beautiful men trapped in the basement of Twitch.tv, forced to record a Gremlin captor, Brian Murray. Brian, we got you on mute.
There we are.
We'll just try that again. No one's even watching the stream. Let's just
clip this.
Clip this. Yeah, we'll put this right out the gate.
Sorry, Xander.
Hey, CK. Let's do this again. This is the I Read Comic Books podcast. I am your host, Mike Rappin. Joining me this week for episode 300 podcast, two beautiful men trapped in the basement of Twitch.tv, forced to record a podcast with their gremlin captor, Brian Murray.
Hello.
Hey, everyone.
Thank you both for joining me this week. I'm so excited to be here to talk about comic books with the both of you and to be TV. I'm sorry we're not on YouTube for you YouTube heads. We are on Twitch.tv live for this episode where you can see our beautiful faces. You can see my freshly shaved, stubbly face with the beautiful mustache, Brian's wonderful IRCB hat, and Danny's amazing Henry Cavill poster behind him and Spider-Man, Deadpool. Danny, full comic book nerd setup over there. I'm always impressed by. But we're here to talk about comics. I don't have any announcements for this week's show because we don't really have much of episode right now happening. So let's just jump into the two legally mandated questions that we have for every single episode, and that is, how have you been? How have comic books been? Let's Danny.
Mike, I've been it's been quite a few days. Like, it's been an interesting time.
Yeah.
But it did allow me to realize a few things, and one of those is that comics is always there for you. So you know, so comics is a constant in my life, I think. Also, I'm really happy. You guys did a great job on the Nuff Said episode. Like, I was so looking forward to talking about that, and then I wasn't able to be on that episode. But Paulie was a clutch replacement. So yeah, that was so fun to listen to afterwards. Now, as far as comics, as I said, I've had plenty of time to read a bunch of stuff, and I think I really picked some of the best stuff that I've read in a little while. I will say the first comic I'm going to talk about is It's Lonely at the Center of the Earth, spelled the cool British way, by Image Comics.
Spelled the cool British way, Danny.
All of them. but specifically center is different than the way it's spelled in America. I do have a content warning for self-harm and suicide for this book. So in this book by Zoe Thurgood, she records 6 months of her own life as it falls apart in a desperate attempt to put it back together again, and the only way she knows how. It's Lonely at the Center of the Earth. It's an intimate meta-narrative that looks into the life of a selfish artist who must create her own survival. Now, this is all from the publisher. I am not calling the creator selfish.
Just, call her by her name,
Yeah. But man, oh man, I was not ready for this book. It is very good. I really enjoyed it. It's a deep personal journey that it almost feels intrusive. Like, when I was reading it, I was like, should I even like, I know it's a book that is being published, but like, should I even be reading this? Like, I feel like I'm just, I don't know. It was definitely, that part was it's interesting, but uncomfortable too.
Sure.
But, I wanted to read it. I don't really read books like this, but Zoe Thurgood is such a talented creator. Go check out Rain and other stuff. That just really wanted to check it out. And Image has been doing some really interesting stuff that's very creator focused as well. Like just maybe one creator per book or something like that. I'm glad it was published as it's standalone. Obviously, this really would not have been like, it wouldn't have worked serialized. That wouldn't make sense. I don't even think that the creator would have wanted it that way. But it also delivered a great use of the medium, like just kind of pushing some of the boundaries of sequential art, breaking the fourth wall, using mixed media. You even get like an actual like picture of the author throughout the book, but it's all part of the narrative. And yeah, it's a really, it's kind of depressing sometimes because obviously he's dealing with a lot of like heavy themes. This is all like a year into COVID when all this happens too. So the
Gotcha.
creator's dealing with a lot of that stuff, and trying to get back to conventions, and is that even something that she wants to do? Interacting with fans, like all that stuff is really interesting too, because I think whenever we as comic fans approach creators, for the most part, I believe that we have good intentions and we just want to
Sure.
praise their work. But sometimes not everybody has the social skills to like communicate that successfully, or even creators may not have,
That's
and things can
me.
get awkward and stuff. You're right. So I highly recommend this book. It is beautiful, and like I said, you just get one book and it's all done. So
Yeah.
yeah, this was really fun, and highly recommend it.
Gotcha. Yeah, I've got that sitting on my shelf, and I've been meaning to read it for a minute. So I think I have no excuse. Chat with us said they read that as well. So I mean, no excuse. All the pressure's coming from all sides. I need to pick that book up.
Definitely.
But how about you? How have you been? How have comic books been? What's on your what's been on your to read pile?
I've been pretty good. I've got your West Michigan weather watch. It's
Thank you.
it's cold. It was either bright and sunny or snowing like a bitch yesterday, one or the other.
Okay.
And it seemed to switch off every half hour or so. So that was fun and unpredictable. But that's great comics weather because I didn't even have to look outside. The first thing I read was The Last of Us American Dreams. This is written by Neil Druckmann and Faith Erin Hicks. Art by Faith Erin Hicks, colors by Rachel Rosenberg, and letters by Clem Robbins. This is a prequel comic to The Last of Us game. Came out in 2013, I think. It was right after the game was released. And because it came out so long ago, it doesn't really line up exactly with the show's canon, but that doesn't matter at all to me. I'm a Star Wars fan. What do I care for canon? This book starts with Ellie arriving at the Fedra quarantine zone where she will eventually meet Joel. She immediately gets into trouble when some punks steal her Walkman, and she tries unsuccessfully to beat the hell out of them. She's rescued by Riley, who, of course, immediately steals her Walkman. Ellie then pursues Riley as she sneaks out of the Fedra school later that night, and they sneak into a mall, because if there's one thing I know about zombie media, it's that nothing bad ever happens in malls. This book really showcased one of my favorite things about The Last of Us as a franchise, and it's this contrast of the horrifying, fungal zombie infested world around everyone. But when you occasionally get to see these moments where you are reminded that Ellie is in fact just a kid. Like she's 13 in this book, 14 in the game. And she very much behaves like this world weary, battered person. But then she finds out she gets to ride a horse. And there's this moment where like you can just see her eyes light up. And it's just like, oh right, you are just a kid. Oh, that makes us all so much worse.
Yeah. Oh, this is I'm really glad you mentioned this book, Brian, because I just finished watching the show, and I won't get into it, but I haven't played the games because I don't really play games, but my brother's an avid Last of Us player. He actually just replayed the re-release of the first game, and he told me that this comic was either the inspiration for some DLC. So I think you do get to kind of play out the story that you just talked about, which is really interesting. And then I think it's also been like minor spoilers. It's also adapted in the show. So it's really done very well in the show. So I want to go back and check out how this is different in the comic. I always like comparing like media when it's adapted in different forms, especially stuff from a video game, because we have a bad track record with video game adaptations.
Sure, yeah.
So very interesting. Definitely going on the top of my pile digitally, because it's impossible to find this printed. I did check.
Oh, I can imagine. It was on Hoopla though. So.
Oh, okay, okay. I was literally just at Barnes and Noble earlier today. I think I saw this. Okay, you know what, Danny, we'll talk after the show, and we'll work
Yeah.
on some sort of Mike goes to Barnes and Noble.
Yeah,
I'll
Mike's gonna
mail
walk out
something
of
to you.
10 copies of the book for everyone in the podcast.
Right, 9 for eBay, 1 for Danny.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, this is gonna be your inheritance, kids. That's what I'll send it all to you guys with a nice special like will and testament note. No, that's interesting. I think it's funny that you say that though, Danny, about like the comparison between like video games and movies and like adaptations and stuff. Because Kelly right now is playing. She and I never finished it. I was like, those I played on normal. It's too hard. I don't want to play it on story mode because I'm like a jerk. It's okay mode because she just wants to see how the story is told through the
Right.
video game. And she kept saying to me like this game a movie that I'm making choices in. And that not as like an insult, right? Because she's playing it through story mode, and I think that's how story modes are meant to be played through. But I interesting that like she said it that way because I've heard other people say that The Last of Us is extremely cinematic and all this other stuff, and to play it in story mode, it is just kind of like a big long 8 or 9 hour movie. Is really interesting to think about adapting that to a TV 9 hours ish long. It kind of gives me hope that there's a lot of stuff that's actually sticks true to the video game, and you actually get to see a lot of rather than them having to do the thing that happens with most adaptations from longer media where they have to crunch things or omit some things that are important, even though fans will always call them out and say, I can't believe that this character from Game of Thrones who had one chapter is not in this thing, something like that. So yeah, interesting. I guess, Brian, having played the game and also watched the show, I assume, do you feel like that was the case?
I have not played the game.
Oh, okay. I misheard you.
I started playing it, and I got to the part where you're in like a museum trying to sneak past clickers. And after the third time, I got ripped to pieces and wanted to throw my controller through the screen. I decided that was not the game for me. But I have seen a lot of like clips of it on YouTube and on TikTok and stuff. And there are some scenes in the show where it's like a shot for shot recreation of scenes in the game.
Yeah.
Like there's
that opening scene in particular.
Yeah, I think it was in like the second to last episode. Where this like the set, I was watching Ellie move around on the set, and I was like, I've seen this exact set in the game.
Yeah.
This is so weird.
And
that's really cool.
Very cool. Yeah. Very cool.
Well, let me talk about a book that it's been a very interesting week to say the least, as well on my end. Who knows where I'm going to be in May? It's a whole interesting situation in terms of my job and stuff. So I'm just trying to read comics to just not think about that. So I picked up, I started Divers. I read issues number 3 through 5. Issue 6 is coming out this week, which is the last issue in the arc. So I kind of wanted to get caught up because the story, for those of you who don't remember when this was on the top of my pile a few weeks ago, the story of sending a Native American guy goes back in time in order to kill Christopher Columbus, in order to prevent America from happening. Pretty cool concept. I mean, the title of the book is Earth Divers, Kill Columbus. Like, hell yeah. Like, fun alternate history we could potentially play with. And so I don't know how to, as I read through these 3 issues, like, I don't know if this book is just good or really great, but I'm super hooked into the story of this sad future that involves time travel, where these 4 Native Americans are just trying to prevent the awful future that America has become in the year 2021-12. I can't seem to get that Rush song out of my head for some. But the TLDR about this book, in the year 2112, 4 Native Americans send one of their own back in time to kill Christopher Columbus, America from ever becoming a country. And it's a wild idea because none of them actually know if the time travel works. They just know that if you send someone into never come out. It's a really cool story, and but they pretty much find out though as the story goes on, maybe have their own ideas about how things are going to go, which is an interesting thing to play with. There is this sort of uncertainty as you're reading the book of, is everything destined to happen the way that it's always happened? Can you actually affect time? It's the age-old question about time travel, but I really like the way that Stephen Graham Jones, who's the writer on this book, is playing with this idea of a combination of Native American folklore and like like the idea of fate itself, like what does that even mean to different peoples and different cultures as people from different Native American tribes start to clash in the present day 112. Yeah, it's a cool book, and I can't wait to see how he pulls off the final issue of this arc. Like, it's gonna happen. It's maybe a little bit spoiled in issue 4, but also it seems that history is constantly changing, which I like. There's no certain thing, and that idea of if you go back in time, will the history books be rewritten by those who are reading it now? Is this an alternate timeline? Blah 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 blah. Like stuff, and that's what makes this book so interesting. We don't have the scientific explanation about time travel in this book. We have this gut feeling that these four folks in 2112 are kind of relying on. So yeah, it's an interesting book, and I think this is hopefully this last issue of the first arc, it will actually like close up some loose ends, and we'll get something pretty satisfying. And it says this is book 1 in the log and stuff for each of these issues. I don't know if that means it's going to be the only one or if there's going to be more, but I'm having a lot of fun with it. And if you haven't checked this out, I think it's going to be a pretty cool. Give it a chance.
I read issue 1 of this when it came out months ago.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed the premise enough. I also really enjoyed the point of view of, like, you know, trying to change things from the point of view of these characters. So yeah, I'm definitely waiting for it to be completed, because I did, that was my only thing, that I just wanted to read the next one like immediately to see what happened next, because it leaves you up in a really cool spot after the first issue. And then, you know, you want to understand like what kind of time travel you're dealing with. Is it like Back to the Future rules, or like Endgame rules, or like, you know, it's like, all this stuff. So
5 issues in, dude, we have no idea.
So
yeah, that's what makes it cool. And I mean, you know, David Gianfelici is on art on this book, doing a fantastic job.
Yeah.
Really detailed stuff. This is from IDW, which is not a publisher that I usually look to for independent books, but I feel like they've got a pretty creative team on this book. Joanna Lafuente is on art or on colors. So like this trio of creators is doing a solid job in of the book. I could not for the life of me find who did the letters for this book. I don't understand why that's just not obvious credits on the internet, but yeah, looking for something that's definitely off the beaten path. I think this is a really fun one, and there's a lot of like fury and righteous like anger, like
yeah,
Graham Jones's perspective as he's writing about the Native American experience in America from his perspective. So yeah, I feel like there's a lot of jabs, but definitely nothing you can fault anyone about. So yeah, this is a good book. It's a good book.
The wave of IDW originals that launched last year, this is one of them. Know Your Station with Sarah Gailey and Liana Kangas, like they're doing all these things. Scott Snyder has one. Like those are a lot of fun, and but also you could tell it's like we're giving creators chances to, like, you know, put some books out, but also maybe get some IPs farmed for the future. Which, you know, as long as the creators get paid for all that, good for them, right? You know, get your stuff out there, get your stories out there.
Yeah, exactly.
So very exciting stuff.
Danny, well, let's bounce right back to you. What else have you been reading?
Well, the other 2 books I'll talk about, and I'll talk about one of them now. They're not as heavy as the first one, because I also wanted some levity in. So the next one I read is Superman Lost #1. This is a new book from DC Comics. They've been doing these. Yeah, this is one of the variant covers for everybody watching on Twitch. Everyone listening to the podcast, go check it out. We'll put some pictures out there on Twitter. But yeah, this was so much fun. It's a really story, but let me talk about the creative team first. So this story is written by Christopher Priest with art by Carlo Pagulayan, inks by Jason Paz, colors by Jeremy Cox, and letters by Willie Schubert. In this book, after Superman is called away on a routine Justice League mission, Lois Lane awakens to find a complete stranger standing in her living room. The Man of Steel, home much sooner than expected, reveals he has in fact been lost in space for 20 years. Dude, I don't know if the gas was real or ironic, but I'm gonna take it.
I don't know, man. I don't know anything that's going on in the Superman universe. Like, all I know is I read Superman, Son of Kal-El. Does this tie into that? Like,
no.
Okay, totally different thing.
That's the beauty of this book, and that was one of my first points, that this is very new reader friendly, very self-contained. Very reminiscent of the Batman Fortress that just wrapped up, which was like, I think it was like 10 issues as well, or 8. This is just going to be a 10-issue story about this plot that I just threw out there.
Mm-hmm.
Christopher Priest, he's won Eisner's in the past, and I think overall I enjoy his stories. I think if you go check out the Deathstroke run from DC, it was very good. His Justice League run was not as good, so it's kind of hit or miss. But overall, I think Christopher Priest is a good writer, and
Sure.
Carlo Pagulayan, his art really fits the story because it feels kind of retro, in a fun way when we're like experiencing everything on on Earth. But as the premise gets wild and you kind of start seeing like that's kind of what I'm looking forward to now. What's going on with what happened during those 20 years? So we're gonna have 10 issues to kind of talk about all that stuff, and then
Mm-hmm.
what does this mean for Superman coming back, and how does this affect Lois? Because I think that's the main thing too. That this book, for the first 3 quarters of this issue, it focuses on their relationship and everything, and then of course Batman shows up and he gets blamed for everything. Like
Of
if
course.
Batman was controlled, yeah. So it's
You know,
really
Batman and his time travel powers.
yeah, right. So it's a really fun premise. And then, like I said, I would, if anybody knows anything about Superman, I would hand them this issue because you only need to know who Superman is and maybe the Justice League, and that's it. Like you don't need 30 years of continuity, which is very smart that I think DC's doing stuff like this because not everyone reads everything like myself and a few other people on
Yeah.
the Discord, right? So very
Yeah.
good approach, I think.
Damn it, Danny. Now I'm picking this up. This is what's happening after this stupid show. I hate this podcast sometimes. You guys are making me reading all this DC shit that I don't even care about, okay? Come on.
It's okay. We got the DC Infinite account now, so you can just read it there.
That's true. That's
Uh,
true. Maybe I'll check it
and
out there
We
and then maybe buy the trade eventually, who knows.
yeah,
we all have
I'll
our
make
own distinct DC Infinite accounts.
Yeah. For
yeah,
legal purposes, yes.
I'll make Polly give you his take on it because I am 100% sure that Polly picked this book up. Like I don't even
Oh
have to.
yeah.
I don't even have to. I
Oh
don't need
yeah.
confirmation.
Just
So
look at I mean, I've looked at this was I tweeted about this because I think it was a pick on the show very recently,
yeah,
and
yeah.
I saw that cover and I was like, man, that's cool. Superman fans are really getting something nice this week, and then I just didn't think about it. But if
Yeah.
you're saying it's good, you're saying it's new reader friendly, I'll be the judge of that. I'm the new reader. Okay.
Okay.
Well, you'll be
Well,
getting some
stay
feedback.
tuned,
That's all I'm
folks.
saying.
Yeah, stay tuned. I
Yeah.
like that we're building some continuity now into all this.
Right. If you
Like
don't, I read comic books, you just will not understand what's happening this week.
yeah.
Um,
That's
Brian,
like
tell us what
my-
else you've been reading.
Like my top of the pile never comes back up, never matters. I'm new reader friendly.
True.
My next pick, funny enough, was actually also published by DC.
Yeah.
I thought that was weird. This is The Nice House on the Lake, written by James Tynion IV, art by Alvaro Martinez Bueno, colors by Jordi Belair, and letters by And World Design. I knew this book sounded familiar, so I'm sure that one of you guys has talked about it on the show before, but I did not remember anything else about it.
It's right here. You can read it through the very pixelated 723 or 720p compressed image, but it's right here on the shelf. I'm just
Yeah,
gonna
me,
call
me
that
and
out.
my great eyesight, my -6 prescription on my contacts. I had no idea what this was going to be about, and around 15 pages in, I was still like kind of uncertain. But the thing that got me to keep reading was that each character in it has like a title and this weird little symbol to go with it. So you got like the artist,
Yes.
the comedian, the scientist, and they're introduced in such a way that I'm like, I have no idea what that means, but I want to. I want to understand this.
Yeah.
And sometimes stuff like that would push me away. I couldn't explain to you why this got my interest deeper instead of pushing me off, but it did. And then at the end of that first issue, we take a hard left into Eldritch Horror. As spoilers, the world ends. And things get weirder from there. The art in this book is phenomenal. Like Buenos art and Belarus colors, like the way they work together is so incredibly like eerie and unsettling, but
Oh
in
yeah.
like the best possible way. Like there's some stuff that I can only describe it as body horror. It's very like very The Thing in the way certain bodies have shapes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm a big fan of that stuff. So like it wasn't scary though. That's the weird thing. Like this book is 100% horror, but it's not scary.
Right. The thing that
I
that got me the most out of that book is that first issue, reading it blind, not really knowing what the book was going to be about. Then this is another James Tinian banger. Like we need a DJ spot that you could just press a button, just like another DJ, a banner, whatever. But I just knew coming out of Department of Truth that like there was going to be something special about this book. Because I decided to skip over it when it first came out, and then I was like, and then to see how that first issue ended, I like lost it, like near panic attack, freaking out because so absurdly close to reality. I was like, this book is something absolutely special. And then of course trying to read it month to month, it feels like a dictionary from the letter A to letter B and then from B to C because there's so much to take in. I can't wait to reread this. Like do. So I'm like gonna sit down and just like power through both volumes. But despite that, the first 6 issues I did reread and I loved it. And it's not horror, but it is constantly like there's always a moment of suspense that is broken by a flashback, and you're supposed to feel about this book like constantly throughout the whole series. I really, really love that because
Yeah.
there's something unsettling, but you can never really put your finger on it.
Yeah, I also have read volume one of this. I read the first issue when it came out, and it was really good. But there was a lot of stuff happening at the time, and because it's a DC horror, which is it's really interesting. Also, that DC is publishing a book like this. I'm glad they're doing it, and I'm glad I bet at that point he could do whatever he wanted, anyways.
Right.
And it
Contract,
probably
baby.
still can. Yeah. So yeah, this book is really fun in the most scariest of ways. And I think I want to say you guys, Mike, you and somebody else made Kate Scotchless read this, I think, for one of the topics of the episode, which was
Yeah.
really, I think for somebody that doesn't normally read horror and focuses more on like middle grade type of comics, making them jump onto a book like this feels kind of cruel, but it's also very interesting to listen to. So
Yeah.
check the backlog of the episodes for that.
That's definitely
but
like
yeah,
going up to your friend who watches all the Disney films. Like, you'd really dig is Saw.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, pretty much.
So I'm also very looking forward to reading volume 2. And then yeah, just really kind of catching up on everything James Tynion. But this one's one of the things that it's just on my forever growing list of things to read by James Tynion. Because
Totally.
he just does not stop writing books.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, subscribe to a man at your local comic shop.
You can do it at some shops.
Yeah, no, I have. I don't want to say standing orders, but yeah, I do have standing orders on my shop. That there's a few creators that might they know who to pull like for me. So and it's both writers and artists that they'll just pull everything for me. So and you can also check out Tynion's Substack, which a lot of the stuff you get way in advance. So you like can now subscribe to people directly.
I was gonna subscribe to his Substack. You'll get Blue Book, you'll get World Tree, you'll get Christopher Chance, you'll get what else is he?
The Closet.
Yeah, the Closet. You get all that stuff.
There. Yeah,
yeah, through his Substack, like months in advance before they even go to print, which is cool. Book that I read called Notes from a Sickbed. Speaking of Kate Scotchless, she recommended this to me, and this is by Tessa Brunt. I told Kate that I was going to read it, and I finally sat down and did. And this is a memoir about someone who was stuck in a bed due to undiagnosed illness, later diagnosed as myalgic encephalitis. I'm probably not saying that right, but also known as chronic fatigue syndrome. And the story kind of follows like years of her living in and out of a bed from various places, living with a roommate, living with her parents, living somewhere else. So like, just a warning on the content there. Like it's a kind of a depressing story if you've dealt with someone who, or you're not dealt with, have you've, had that type of family, or you've, experienced that. But I feel like overall Brunton's story isn't really like a one that is like documenting just bouts of depression and bouts of sadness and talking about how like bad her life is, in quotes. It's instead talking about like all of the times where she waves of fatigue, where she couldn't function, and she kind of like documenting the way where her mind went, experiencing these fantasies of like, if only I could get move around, I would do all of these great things. And then eventually at one point in the book, she does go out and do something that she's very excited about, knowing that her body is going to make her pay for it later, because that is kind of the back and forth that she dealt with. But nonetheless, the whole book kind of focuses on this idea of hope, this eventuality that she will figure out what is causing this. And once she gets that all figured out, she will be able to continue her life the way that she was living it before this illness kind of took over the way that she lived her life. And I really appreciated that. Like the message was there. Like, and she kind of talks about how it does get very dark at times. And the moments in the book are unspoken. There's a lot of like silent panels of her crying or considering different things, and like realizing like the sad out on life. Like she goes through all of these like various stages of emotion based on how her disease is making her. I felt like by the end of the book, there's this kind of ambiguous, optimistic upturn that isn't written so much as and like her art style to me doesn't normally click with like a very like cartoony upbeat feel, but every time she tried to get a little bit goofy wild with things, I felt like overwhelmingly happy for her as a character, as a person, not as a character, in the story. So yeah, it's I read this followed by like in the previous book I read was like another depressing book, both from the library and or like very like depressing. And I think the librarians think that like I have something going on because I keep checking out these books that have like very tough subjects over and over.
Oh God,
Last book I checked out was
sad sack with the mustache is here.
like the last book that I picked up just recently after turning notes from a sickbed was Last Days in Vietnam by Will Eisner. Like it's a very interesting hit library, but still, if you're looking for something that's like about a person's life dealing with something that is like very overwhelming to their entire life, I think this is a great read. And if you get a chance to read it, I mean, I highly recommend it. But
I was gonna say, Mike, I think it's really interesting that I think we both read some books that are just creators putting themselves out on the page, and I just find that really admirable, because I think first of all it's got to be super scary, like as somebody that's putting themselves out there through a podcast like this and stuff, like that's not too personal, but like they go into like a lot more personal stuff and just really put it all out there. And then after that's out there, they have no control over how people perceive those things, right?
right.
So they never know what the feedback's going to be. But it's also really cool because some people don't, fortunately, maybe they don't experience that stuff, but they can develop some empathy, or at least figure out what some of those things are. And I think just being more aware of that, I think it's really important. So I'll definitely have to check this out.
Yeah. I mean, and it's not a hugely dense read either. I think like surprised me. Like we read some other books. I read some other books very recently that were kind of in a similar vein about people like autobiographical stories, very long, and there's nothing wrong with that. But this is like 150 some pages, and it read really easily. Like Brunton's art is really fun in some. Like the way that she tells stories is really kind of goofy in some ways. Like when she goes into these ideas of like the fantastical realms that she wishes she could live, rather than being in this bed or on a couch. It's really, really enjoyable. And it kind of like pushes you through like the story or the memoirs very quickly, in a lot of ways. So yeah, totally recommend it. But I guess one more, Danny, do you have one more book you want to talk about before we get into the top of our pile?
And I think this was Paul's pick from maybe the Enough Said show, because I love the way he talked about the description. So I might repeat a little bit of that. Fantastic Four, number 5, written by Ryan North with art by Ivan Fiorelli, colors by Jesus Avertov, and letters by Joe Caramagna. In this issue, the Fantastic Four are reunited and all is well until they're interrupted by Nick Scratch and Salem 7. So I didn't know who these people were until Paul kind of talked about it on the show. And these are some of the most bombastic villains that I've ever seen.
Of course,
Which is,
it's the Fantastic
I mean,
Four. Like, they have the most absurd villains ever, right?
exactly. And this is what I'm loving about this series. This is the first time I've pulled Fantastic Four. Now that Ryan North's been writing it, I've checked out a few issues here and there before, but this is the first time I'm actually pulling it from the shop. And yeah, it's everything I want in a Fantastic Four book. Just kind of like these weird stories that are fun and crazy. Like we now know kind of the repercussions of why everyone's mad at the Fantastic Four by this point in the story.
Right.
So like these villains kind of coming out of the woodwork. To me, this feels completely the opposite of what Hickman was doing with the Fantastic Four, because he was just like building all these intricate layers, and this one's like,
Right.
no, we're just gonna have a good time, and kind of go along with it, and it's reflected.
Really?
Yeah, it's very much reflected in Fiorelli's art. Like it's just like the way the characters are drawn and the things that happen. We go to the negative zone because of course it's a Fantastic Four book. So I'm loving this book, and it's planting a lot of seeds for what's gonna happen in the next arc. I'm guessing, maybe even literally. I don't know. It's very weird, but yeah, you can tell that Ryan North is having a lot of fun with this book, and that translates to me having fun while I'm reading this book. So and then you get Alex Ross covers because of course. So yeah, very very much everything you want in a Fantastic Four. It's in this series.
That's, Danny, I'm glad you're enjoying Fantastic Four as well. Someone's that's all I'll say. You and Paul, I'm glad. I'm happy for you guys. I do love those.
I remember when we read the first issue and you kind of broke down Ryan's North approach to what he was going to do with this run. I mean, I think he's definitely sticking to those things.
Sure.
But it seems like they may not be for everyone. But yeah, I'm really enjoying it. So
cool. Well, let me talk about one more. Go ahead.
I was gonna say we'll let you keep the cerebral Hickman Foundation, like 7 layers of continuity type of stuff. But I'm on board with that stuff too. I love it too.
I'll just be read that either. So like I have very little opinions on the Fantastic Four other than I don't care.
Other than all of their movies have been bad.
Yeah. But let me talk about one more book that I read. I finished it today. This is a book called Cuckoo by Joe Sparrow. It's published by Shortbox Comics, so that should be like all the indicator you like hardcore comic book fans should need to know that this book is an amazing comic book in general. It's a beautifully illustrated comic about kind of finding your place. The story is Dorothy is an anxiety-ridden 19-year-old who's trying her best to make it through illustration courses at a UK version of community college. When a mysterious, quote, thing involving aliens maybe from her childhood resurfaces, Dorothy will meet her first real best friend and discover there's more to herself in the universe. This is not the plot to E.T. I just want to be clear about that. The story is not E.T. It sounds very much like E.T. in my description. It's not. A joke that only I found funny. It's a story, but the story is interesting because the way that Sparrow comics is probably some of the most precise, interesting, cartoony styles I've ever seen. Right, like there is a thing about who do books that kind of have like a Steven Universe, and not to say it's a style, but there's like a very that vibe where everything's kind of bubbly with the sharp edges still feel kind of like not so sharp. The way that Sparrow draws their book, it feels like 10 more levels of detailed precision. They're not drawing like people and things. They're making geometric shapes turn into objects that recognize as people. It's a really, really interesting way to make comics. And I feel like if anybody looked at this book, you look at the preview for this book, it looks like a book that I just described, like a Bloom, or I'm just going to keep staying Steven Universe because it's the only thing I can think of off the top of my head. But but there is like an extra layer of detail inside of everything that they do. Their panel layouts and the way that they do page layouts is incredible. And I really liked the message at the center of this story. Message being that like this thing, like I said, aliens come to Earth. Maybe we don't know what they are really. Something happens with Dorothy, and I don't want to reveal it here, but because of that thing, she has to kind of question everything that she's thought was wrong in her life, right in her life. She kind of questions her existence in the vastness of the universe and finds that while her all it is as important as anything else, and that all of the things that have gone right in the universe are something to reflect on versus the things that she views as maybe being not so good in the way that she's lived her life in this very small microcosm of the universe itself. I really like the optimistic bent that you could take away from this book. I think there's alternatively a very dark way of this book that you could get based off of the last probably dozen pages, where there is this uncertainty of how the book actually ends. You have to read this book and experience it to actually ask yourself how you think the story ends, because I think Sparrow does a great job of leaving without that kind of like middle finger of I'm not even gonna find an ending for this book that I think some writers do. There is clearly an end here, but how you wish to interpret that is up to you as the reader, and I think that that's just amazing. So highly recommend this. I think you can get this on the short box. I got this through their Kickstarter. In the future, I'll say if you see a short box Kickstarter, just go ahead and support that. Just do it. You're going to get comic books, especially when they do their, or they used to, I don't know if they do it anymore, sampler series where you would get like a couple of small zine-sized comics from a couple of different creators. One of my favorite comics from 2020 or 2019 was in that box, like hands down one of the best comic books I read that year. So you get a chance, but this Cuckoo book was amazing. I really liked it.
I assume the title is kind of foreshadowing for the comic.
Yeah. Yeah, there is a question of like of sanity and kind of lives in the book as well. But again, it's a matter
that cuckoos will lay their eggs in other birds' nests.
Oh,
that is
that's
way
right.
more apt like connection. That yes, totally, Brian.
I
Totally.
play a lot of Wingspan. I think about birds more than your average person probably does.
I see.
Well, Mike was describing this book. I know you mentioned the main character's name is Dorothy, and I was like, "Huh, I didn't." And then you described the joke about ET, and I just started like, both ET and Dorothy just wanted to go home, and they're the Wizard of Oz and ET respectively. So I don't know if the name Dorothy is an allusion to the Wizard of Oz, but just the way you kind of described it feels like there's definitely a little bit of weirdness.
Both also have a person on a flying bike.
Right.
Well, yeah. Well, I'm gonna say probably not. There isn't a lot of like I want to go home in this book.
Okay.
But you can interpret honest to God, you can interpret the last like dozen pages of this book to mean a lot of different things, and maybe some thing that is a part of that story. I'll let you, the reader, be the judge of that. I'll just say that everyone send me your reviews. Email me .com. I'm taking any and all feedback about Cuckoo. I think it's a really good book, and if you're watching on Twitch, you can see the cool cover that I got. It's like shapes, but if you guys what I'm saying with this style, it kind of feels like there's like a cartoony vibe to it, but it's something else.
Yeah. I love the way the name is done, just with geometric shapes too, like the actual font.
Yes.
It's very like
geometry is very, very important in this book. It's really
everything is shapes when you get down to it.
Yeah, stay in school, kids. Like geometry was one of the subjects that you're actually going to use in real life when you're an adult. Like whether you have to move a couch into your house, or you have to drive down the freeway, or you're just playing pool, like that one actually pay attention. Some of the other stuff, whatever. But
yeah, to all of the teenager out there listening to this podcast, stay in school. Let's move on to another regular segment here on I Read Comic Books. Every week, I ask people to give me one book that's on the top of their pile, a comic that's new, old, and that they've just been meaning to read, and they're finally getting around to it. So let's jump right into that with Brian. What's on the top of your pile this week?
Yeah, at the top of my pile, I'm going back to the manga side of things. The
Yes.
top of my pile is a book called Tomo-chan is a Girl. This is written by Fumida Yanagida. This is I actually just saw the anime show up on Crunchyroll not too long ago,
Nice.
and I decided to watch it because I was like, hey, maybe they're gonna do some weird stuff with gender. I'm always down for some weird gender stuff.
Hmm.
And that's not what it is, but it wound up being a very cute love story, anyways. It's a story of this young woman Tomo who is like your classic tomboy, like sporty archetype, and she is sick and tired of being treated like one of the guys. She has a huge crush on her childhood best friend June, and he is fully not picking up what she's putting down. You know, she'll, you know, excuse me, the show opens with her like confessing her love to him, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I love you too, buddy." Um,
Oh no.
and so the rest of the show and presumably the manga as well is going to be her uh attempting to like get his attention and be like, no, you dipshit, look at me. Like, actually look at me. The characters are a little bit over the top in like that anime manga way, but not to the point that they're like obnoxious.
Hmm.
I mean, personally, I find them all very charming. Um, they they do the classic like thing that no human being ever actually does, where when somebody makes you a little angry, so you punch them in the face as hard as you can. Um, but they do at least explain that, like, these two have been taking karate together since they were little kids. So like
I see.
it kind of makes sense a little bit if you squint.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Well,
there's one story arc that I'm hoping that they're going to actually get into. I don't know if they have the guts or not. Where it seems like one of their other best friends, it seems like she has a huge crush on Tomo. Um, I don't know if they have the courage to actually go through with that love triangle, but I'm
Mm.
here for it.
mm, do it, cowards. Do it.
Yeah, make it gay,
I was
you
gonna
dips.
say at the comic shop this week, and I did see that Dinosaur Sanctuary Volume 2 came out this week, and I kind of expected that to be the top of your pile, but
If I had
you
known
know,
it was coming out, it probably would have been.
Yeah, or maybe I got the date wrong. I don't know. I thought I saw it on the shelf. Maybe I only saw Volume 1.
I just don't
I'm
pay
excited.
attention to anything,
Ah,
so
okay. Well, I'm just saying I'm also very much looking forward to that book because you sold Volume 1, Brian. I just want to make that loud and clear here on the show. Spoilers if you didn't listen to the Patreon episode that we did about the best of 2022 in comics. That was Brian's pick, and I loved it. I thought it was so fun. But
Any book that employs a third party like expert, I think it's at least worth checking out. Because you know you're gonna get some real good information.
exactly.
yeah, my inner
Danny, what about
dinosaur
you?
nerd was very into that book.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Totally.
Uh, well, Mike, as expected, I'm picking a Batman book because, of course,
Of course.
um,
Of course.
we
Brian's
have Batman. Yeah, yeah, right. And then they're breaking off, and then careful,
Right.
Brian. There might be a don't walk the alleyways with your pearls.
Xavier has a gun. Oh no. Danny, you're Bruce Wayne.
I will reluctantly become Batman, I guess. Very reluctantly.
Sorry, man.
Uh,
Sorry.
I'll be submit your applications to be my Robin at the IRCB email. Mike will filter through those. But yeah, I'm picking Batman One Bad Day, Rachel Gould, because first of all, these One Bad Day one shots have been amazing, and allow me to. And here's some insider information. I'm gonna give you a little bit of a thing you can spend your money on. DC is reprinting these in hardcover, and then they're gonna make a slipcase for it. And I've already seen it on the website, and I've already asked my shop to pre-order it for me. And it's probably too much money, and it's a very irresponsible purchase, but it is so cool. I am
This
so excited for it.
so the slipcase is gonna have for all You're saying?
So each one of the books will get printed into its own hardcover, and then all those
Yeah.
8 books go into the one slipcase, and I can't wait to put that in my shelf. Yeah. Oh,
I
so
mean,
much fun.
I
But
read the one bad day comic, and that was the Riddler one. I really liked it. You have given me enough interest to want to try the other ones. I'm just saying, you got me to buy that Riddler one, Danny. 96 pages. It was totally.
oh yeah.
I don't know. I'm gonna have to get your recommendation for what I should grab next. That's all I'll say.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to buy this hardcover slipcase thing, it comes with all of them. So, you know,
Right, Mike, you like to spend $7.99 on one issue. Why don't you spend $200 on hardcovers in a slipcase?
that's right. Make sure you ask your subscription about I mean your comic shop about subscription discounts. I get
right.
10 and 20% at both my shops. So, but
Smart,
anyways, back to
smart.
Ra's al Ghul.
Yeah.
This is going to be written by Tom Taylor with art by Ivan Reis, Danny Miki on inks, colors by Brad Anderson, and letters by Wes Abbott. So for centuries, Ra's al Ghul has wanted to save the earth from the worst of humankind, and for centuries he has failed. Recently, his greatest obstacle has been the dark detective Batman. Ra's offered Batman a chance to be a part of his new world, but Batman has refused. For years, their Cold War has raged, but Ra's will have no more of it, and he will finally remove Batman from the equation. Doesn't this just sound fun? I mean,
Definitely sounds like one side of that story.
yeah, for sure, right?
I mean, I think it sounds really cool. Like, I love to see villains think they've gotten one over on Batman, only to find out that, like, how could they ever think that? That's like, this is like the rules of a Predator movie or the rules of an Alien movie, right?
Yeah.
At this point, like, the Predator, the humans show up and they're like, we're gonna hunt this thing down, and then the Predator kills all of them, and they're like, how could this be possible?
Yeah.
Just like, there's no way it infects anybody, and then they all die. Like, it's all really, really standard. And there's just something that's just nice about the predictability. No matter what angle you approach it at, it's still really fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, if it's not Act 3 and you're going up against the Predator, you're fucked. Sorry.
Right.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. So yeah, that's definitely what I'm picking up. But Mike, what are you reading?
Well, I guess before I get into what I'm reading next, we had some folks hanging out with us live on Twitch, which is you who are the special folks who hang out in our Discord. We asked you before we started the show to give us what books you're reading next, and CK is reading The Rush. I don't know what this book is, but Danny, you told me before we started recording that you knew what this book was.
Yeah, I read issue 1, and that might have been I might have exaggerated on my knowledge of this book.
Okay,
because I read issue 1, but it is by Cy Spurrier. It's like this it's like this Western type of story from Ball Comics. So that's another. So those are 2 check marks, I think, in the favor of this book. That's why I read the first one. But then it's like a Western themed book that gets really weird because Cy Spurrier's writing it.
Of course.
So I was gonna wait till the collection was done. I wasn't aware it was already out. So thanks to CK for pointing out that it is. So I'm definitely gonna go back and reread this now. I just really like Vault stuff, but I just know that a lot of their stuff reads better collected. But I understand why they have to serialize it. But
okay, so just looking this up while Danny was talking, we've got Cy Spurrier, we've got Nathan Gooden on. This is everything that I want in a comic book. So I'm going to immediately buy this. So thank you to Danny. Thank you to CK. Appreciate that. But for me this week, this is a book that I grabbed on a whim, and my pre-orders for my LCS. This is the problem when you actually go through the previews 3 months in advance. Sometimes you know what? I don't even care that it's a $40 hardcover. I'm buying this thing. And then you show up to the shop one day and they go, Mike, you have a book. We can't put it in the box. Finally, you're here to get it out of our stock. And I'm like, what the hell could that even be? Like, did I accidentally buy an oversized book? I hands it to me, and it's not oversized, but it's much bigger than the boxes they use to store comics. And this is Negliad, the Vincent Perrier, or Perrier, I don't know, Perry something. It's from Titan Comics. The synopsis for this book, and I think this is why I bought it. The French book translated into English. Negliad follows dinosaur shepherd Jerry as he joins a rebel group intent on destroying totalitarian government that controls his dystopian world, perfect for fans of Jurassic Park. In a post-apocalyptic far future alternate world, dinosaurs roam the desolate land while the last denizens of humanity survive together in technological cities run by a military regime. Jerry, a loner who shepherds a group of dinosaurs, travels to the city when his herd is murdered. There he becomes involved with a rebel group who defies totalitarian society and uncovers a conspiracy that reveals the true nature of the world they live in. What he finds will change his life forever. Come on, everybody. That's not the coolest book description you've ever heard. Like I said, I pre-ordered this on a whim, and honestly, just looking through the book as I have it, it's a beautiful looking book. I know why I grabbed this, because the preview art looked amazing. The concept is funky, fresh, European sci-fi fantasy weirdness that always kind of like scratches a weird itch that I have. So I'm really excited for this. It's going to be a super fun, weird ride. Chance Titan Comics sometimes makes some really bizarre comic books, but it's totally worth it. Like, take a risk on a Titan Comics comic book sometime. You'll probably have a good time.
They tend to bring some really fun international stuff to the US
Totally.
as well. But Mike, we're gonna need you to update us if there's a Chris Pratt wrangling Raptors post type of thing.
Danny, if that in the book, and I'll send you a video. You can put that on Twitch or TikTok or something. No.
If TikTok of Mike eating pages out of this book.
Yeah, exactly. I'll go full feral mode and just lose it. All my books. I've got a whole of lunches over here to my right. If that happens, but I get that kind of wraps up today's show. I guess for the most part. Brian, I asked you guys this. I put it in the bottom of our show notes. Any thoughts about Omnibus or Global Comics? They both got Valiant recently. Just curious to see if you had any thoughts on it, because I, for one, am excited about the prospect of someone challenging Amazon and making a comics app and comics website that actually works. Global Comics' website actually works to read comic books, which is really nice. Have you guys looked at this stuff at all? I don't know. I just wanted to throw it out there.
I sometimes get emails from Boom about like their news and stuff. And
Sure.
I believe one of those recently was that they partnered up with either Global Comics or Omnibus. I'm not really sure, or maybe both.
It was Comics just recently had like a big announcement of like a bunch of smaller publishers are coming over to them. So I think it's like Valiant, Boom Studios, Image, all are like signing up where you can read their comics through the discounted like yearly subscription service. Also like buy individual trades and single issues and stuff to them in a different way. So DRM free.
Cool. Well, I'm all for more legal ways to read comics online digitally.
Yeah.
Because that way the creators, can put their work out there and be rewarded for it. And then it's easier for comics to be more accessible. Like, not everyone has. We're very lucky to have the the Hoopla library system that just kind of delivers a lot of stuff. And then the way Comixology's just really not been making an effort to make it user friendly or reader friendly. Like, it is impossible for your desktop website. Like, if I'm not, I'll just read on my iPad now. So if more publishers are going to some of these outlets, the better for it, because I think it'll create some competition, and it'll either make Amazon be like, oh, maybe we should fix some of our stuff, and then improve that experience.
People who knew how to do this.
Yeah, right.
yeah.
Jeez. That's a whole other topic of like how books read different than comic books digitally, but I'm excited. I like I said, I think any way that we can get more people reading comic books. So I'll have to check this out. I love reading digitally. Like, it's my preferred way, even though I buy so many physical books. So maybe if there's a way that some of these publishers are putting some digital coats, I love that feature. So if they're going to do that with some of these partners, maybe that would be an interesting way to get me to go to their platform. So I'm excited for that.
Yeah, I mostly only subscribe to physical books just so that like that sale will be on the book, so they know that people want more of that book. I have not read any of the single issues that I've bought in, I don't know, 2 or 3 years at this point, probably. I just get the trade on, I was been on Comixology for a while, or I read it on Hoopla, like.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, if there's a way that I can do that without supporting Amazon, I would love to.
Yeah. No, the thing that's really interesting to me is these companies, I go back to one of your points, I guess, is these companies that don't exist, I think, to get new people reading comics. Like, here's the thing, this is the that I think we as comic loving folks need to like understand is that getting new readers into comics is through digital, I don't think. It's gonna be through someone like recommending a trade or giving them a physical book, or plopping someone down in front of a reader or something and getting them to read it. But I don't think people are going to be discovering global comics and being like, finally a way for me to read Saga. I think that like these like Omnibus and Global Comics the game a little bit, because I think that like Comixology with their in-app purchases actually allowed people to get access to books that they probably would have never heard of. Comixology had an extreme amount of power in terms of promoting which books they wanted to actually get read, because some folks would just show up to the app and then buy whatever was on the homepage because they maybe read one book. But that's beyond the point here. I think like Global Comics and Omnibus, for the most part, especially like 2023, 24, 25, 26, these first couple of years, if they're going to make a dent in the digital marketplace at all, it's going to folks like us who are a bit more hardcore in our reading over from using Amazon to using their apps instead. Like if I could my comic reading from Amazon over to Omnibus or Global Comics, I'd do it in a heartbeat. I know that it's hassle to like fragment your library and stuff like that, but like ultimately, how often are you going back to read comics? I'm not. It really doesn't matter after I've already read the book once, right? So if and again, to Brian's point, if I don't have to support Amazon in this because of the way that they've treated the way that they treated the digital comic book marketplace in general by not making it any better and in fact making it worse and harder for independent creators, I'd rather hand my money to Global Comics or Omnibus, even if it costs me a little bit more, because I have the ability to do so. So I don't know. Whatever, it's not going to go away, but I'll be quiet so that you guys can respond if you have any thoughts.
No, I think it's also pretty cool that so these are kind of like subscription services too. Like, well, at least they have a subscription type of thing where it's more of a on demand type of stuff like Netflix or something like that.
Yeah.
Because I'm looking through the Global Comics website, and you can sign up for a yearly membership, and then you'll have access to like 30,000 plus books in their library, which I like that. I like having access to subscriptions where like if I want to read an issue for the show or for like whatever I'm doing, I don't want to have to go dig through my 10 20 long boxes in the garage.
Yeah.
I usually check all my digital sources first.
Yeah.
And this like stuff like this is very helpful for people that just kind of want to like, if you suggest something here, I'll be like, oh, let me go check if it's on my subscription at Global Comics or
Right.
or whatever. So I think it's really the way that, like you said, Mike, people that are already reading comics, that's how they get to reread them or like maybe finally check them out if it's been on the top of your pile, but your pile is somewhere else now because you moved it over to your collection. So I don't know, this and the price, I mean, really seems fair. Like it's about the same as what I'm paying for Marvel Unlimited on a yearly basis. So it's definitely comparable, but you get a lot more publishers here, like AWA, Mad Cave, what is this, Source Point, Top Cow, and then some either like a lot of creators are also on this thing. It looks like so, which is really interesting. The submit thing at Comixology was one of the things that I really enjoyed because
Same.
you could discover a lot of books that I probably would have never read had they not been on the submit page at Comixology. So hopefully this also leads to something similar with a lot of these creators get their books out there and
Right.
that you would have never found because they can't print them or something. You can't always get in a book to a comic shop physically. is very
Oh, yeah.
difficult.
Tons of hurdles. Tons of
Yeah.
hurdles.
Yeah.
And this is like a Just Watch. Like, I don't know if you guys use Just Watch at all, but it's like a service to
Constantly.
look up where something is streaming. I think
It
I'm
is.
going to need something like a Just Watch for comics, where you can type in like Saga, or you can type in, The Last of Us, whatever book read, and you can see, oh, it's available to, through the subscription service and Global Comics, or you can buy it directly from this place, or you can find it at this, on Barnes and Noble or something like that. That'd be an interesting thing that I should keep my mouth shut about, because I should just try to build that.
Xander, cut this out.
Yeah, Xander,
Yeah,
cut
right.
oh shit, turn the Twitch stream off, Kate. I don't know. I want comics I want the old Comixology back, and we're never going to get there because it was a wild west of comics distribution. And now walls and services and all this other stuff. So like I'm hoping that something like Global Comics or Omnibus can get us a little bit for everyone but Marvel and DC, But
Yeah.
I guess I can only
Yeah.
dream.
I think those two big publishers, because they have their own like kind of on demand services for this, they will probably, there's no upside for them to send you somewhere else to do their subscription.
Yeah.
Because they
Yeah.
have their own
They're not going to
subscription
make more money
services.
off that.
Right.
Yeah.
But here's the thing, Brian. They're not making any money off the comic. They just need it for farming IP.
Yeah. I mean, letting you for $10 a month, letting you read their books from last month. I don't understand how that works for them, but I mean, I'm taking full advantage of it. And then Marvel only
Sure.
3 months behind. So yeah,
Well,
I don't.
This
It's
okay.
it's
This I'm gonna scream about this until my eyes explode out of my head. But like, there's no, we shouldn't have day and date subscription availability for every single comic book that comes out. The money in comics is not sales. It is in the trade sales and merchandise sales. And as soon as Marvel and DC can get it out of their heads that like that is the way that people make money through single issues, like, then we can move forward as a civilization with no world peace will be solved. No, it's crazy, because I know that the reason why they do that is because they do not want to piss off digital or local comic book shops, right?
Mhm.
Because they don't want to take that away from them. They don't want to take away physical sales. The thing that I feel like they don't recognize is that if there was day and date service for all of this stuff, and we saw this when digital sales distribution happened way back in the day when Marvel and DC were super reluctant to do day and date, and then DC was like, you know what, fuck it, we're just gonna do day and date and see what happens. And then physical sales went up somehow. Palpatine returned. It's not that there's a somehow, there's an explanation. You just
Yeah.
don't want to admit it. This is all sorts of bullshit with Mandalorian and TV shows, so just ignore me. But still, I think that we need to just give up on this thing and recognize that I think local comic book shops probably wouldn't even be mad about this, because they'd more than likely see other sales go up, which no, they're not going to be mad. Single issue sales are not the end of the world, and if a comic book shop is dependent solely on single issue sales, then they don't understand what this market actually is. And I'm going to say that is like the hottest of takes. Shops, call me, let's talk about it. But like, I feel like, I don't know, there's something wrong in comic book sales. We just need to move past it. I don't know.
I don't know. I do think it would be a bigger problem for local comic shops. So I think
Okay.
that you can get your trades at your Barnes and Nobles, at any bookstore.
Sure.
But local comic shops are the only places you can get single issues these days. And people coming in to get their single issues and then buying something else are probably where a lot of that money comes from.
Sure.
Let me tell you how Mike's scenario would work out in my head, because what's happening now is that a few months ago I read this new Flash story, the 1 Minute War thing that's going on. I'm not pulling the Flash, but because it was on the app, I read the first and second issues, and I was like, oh, this is good. I need to pick it up physically. So then I went to my shop, and not only did I buy the last 2 issues that I read, because I already read them, I already knew they were good comics. I also bought the next one, and now I pull that story. So the other advantage that these shops have is people are coming in to already buy a comic book they enjoyed, but maybe they
Mhm.
want a variant cover. Maybe they want it physically to keep it in their collection. You still have the whole speculator thing of like, oh, the first appearance of so and so or whatever,
Sure.
and that's never gonna. I don't think that's ever gonna go away. So like, yeah,
It's
I
also
would be
never
so
going to pay
happy.
off for people, but
Yeah.
It pays off for a select handful of people who are managed to get their for other people, but that's about it.
Yeah. Hey, when that Bad Bunny movie drops, and I'm the one with the 2 issues with that wrestling Spider-Man villain, we'll see who's laughing then, Brian.
Sure.
All
Sure.
right. Um, but yeah, I don't think those things like there's no way. And then people want to go read collections, and there's also like a community at comic shops that I'm very lucky to have good shops around. I know there's some good shops in you guys' area as well. So like,
Sure.
yeah, there's that part of it where it's the same with I listened to a podcast about like tabletop and stuff, which is the same. Like, yeah, you can play online on a lot of these games, but like you want to physically be there with people and stuff. So I don't know. I don't think that'll ever fully go away, but people do need to embrace like some kind of balance on it.
Sure. But I yeah, back and forth on this forever. I appreciate that perspective because in my mind, do the speculators and the 40, 50, 60,000 people buying single issues outweigh what I literally was quoted earlier today at Barnes and Noble. So I went to Barnes and Noble today because I was out and about, and I was there because I was like, oh my God, like this is one of the most well-stocked, well-organized manga comic Criterion collection I've ever seen at a Barnes and Noble, right? And I was like, this is really, really well done. And she's like, oh, sorry, our stock's actually really low because we're doing a buy one, get one free sale. And I was like, if this is your stock low, this place is unbelievably stocked and well packed with comics and stuff. And she said, oh, yeah, we do 25% of our sales in this section alone. And she pointed at the manga section. And I was like, holy smokes. So I guess what I'm getting at is like, people have been reading scanlations and they've been reading single issue and chapters, right? Viz allows all this stuff online. And I mean, maybe for a bunch of other, which is maybe a primary sale beyond like Jujutsu Kaisen and My Hero Academia and One Piece and stuff. But they don't do like a single chapter sale ability to read them, but like nonetheless, people are still going in to buy these collected editions when they could have been just reading them on for free. There is like all of this, and having these single things is like more of a burden. Like you just said it, like I don't want to have to dig through my collection, but you also want to own it. And I understand like the prestige there because I bought a copy of Blue Book chapter 1 and I didn't even need to buy that, but I was up and I saw it, right? But guess what I showed up to pick up there? My trades, because I know, and again, this is an interesting thing, you like have to know that there's a shop that'll do that stuff. But I showed up to pick up all my trades, happened to grab that single issue. Like does the opposite happen more often? I don't know. Again, this is why I think we could go back and forth on that. But regardless, what I'm saying is manga's the future. We got to give up on these Western comics things that just doesn't matter anymore. If the pandemic had proved anything, it's that there are so many fucking manga fans out there. Comics don't even matter. Western comics don't even matter.
Cut
that, Xander, please. We're not doing that.
Clip next week when we talk about whether Superman could beat Goku in a fight.
Right. I love it. Hulk versus Superman versus Goku, Paul and Nick, and I'm just gonna watch it happen. But anyways, I think maybe that's a good place to wrap up before we actually have that discussion, because now I'm starting to think.
All I could think of when you name their roster, I was like, no, I think Saitama's got this. Like that's all I was thinking in my head.
One Punch Man cannot be factored in. We cannot factor in One Punch Man. It does not count. All of those other characters have lost and also won. We'll come up with a rubric for next week. I'll be curious to hear anyone out there's thoughts. But next week's show is going to be a very interesting. It's me, Renee, and Kara. And Kara came to us a while ago and said, hey, Mike and Renee, do this thing. Watch episode 1 and episode 116 and 117 of Riverdale, and we're going to talk about it. And I was like, what? And she said, just show up. And I said, you can't tell me what to do. This is my show, and it's happening next week. So get ready for that.
I was going to say, Mike, the most surprising thing about all that is that there's an episode 116 and 117 of that TV
Yeah.
show?
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
why? I don't understand it.
Danny, it's get all this and more next week on I Read Comic Books. So you've watched those episodes because we're going to be spoiling the heck out of them and probably talking about Archie comics. Kara has this magical ability to connect episodes of Riverdale back to actual Archie canon. I don't know where she has the space in her head for it, but get ready for that. As always, you can find us on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, Discord. Danny and Renee and Kate and I have been trying to do a lot. Mostly Danny, Renee, and Kate TikTok and our YouTube and stuff. So thank you guys for doing that. It's been amazing. You can always support us on Patreon to get access to shows like A Better Batmobile. Season 2's coming. IRCB Movie Club, where Paul, Brian, and I sit down and talk about movies every week or every quarter, not every week. Jeez, oh Pete's. And a bunch of other exclusive Patreon. That's at patreon.com/IRCB podcast. Infinity Shred is the best band in the universe. They do all of our music. If you're listening to this after we've been on Twitch, among us, delivering coincidences that will delight and astound you. I want to say thank you to Brian and Danny for being on this episode. Thank you to everyone out there watching live on Twitch. You are wonderful human beings. And if you got this far in the episode listening after we were on Twitch, thank you so much. We appreciate you. Until next time, comics are good, and so are you. And that's the show. Bye,
We
everybody.
did it.
We're out of here. Thanks for hanging
My-
time.
Why are you still?
I do want to tell
Show's
you,
over.
Mike, we were also streaming on YouTube.
Oh, cool. We were on YouTube.
Yeah, I got the
Yikes.
notification. I got the notification, and I was like, "Oh, okay. Well, I'm not gonna stop the show for that, but I'll let Mike know afterwards."
I just realized. Yeah, CK is very mad at me right now. I can. Oh no. But well, thank you all for hanging out tonight. This was a blast. And hopefully you had a good time and enjoyed it. All 7 or 8 of you that have been here. Next time, maybe we'll broadcast on Twitch and YouTube. We'll see if Mike gets to change the configuration again. We'll be doing another one of these probably in May, so look forward to that. But otherwise, have a good night and thank you again. It was good.